Welcome to all.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm, of course, Steve Smigelski, the manager of the Alpena County Regional Airport. And today what we'd like to do is take a little look at the history of the airport, and then we're going to talk about our accomplishments, and then we're going to spend some time talking about the future. So I hope you find this presentation informative and hopefully entertaining as well. To residents of Alpena of the early 1900s, the broad tract of land stretching from 7 Mile Dam on the Thunder Bay River to M32 was known as the Burnings or the 7 Mile Plains. Long before it was an airport, it was best known as a huge blueberry patch. In the dawn of flying machines, the large grassy plain became a favorite site for early pilots known as barnstormers. It was a common sight for barnstormers to entertain groups of spectators, picnickers, or carnival goers. It's probably the Netflix of the day. During World War I, military biplanes could be seen landing and taking off from the grass strip. The area's natural flat characteristics were ideal for runways. In the aftermath of World War I, growth and expansion of the site became the vision of Harry Fletcher. Harry Fletcher was a member of the State Aeronautics Board and a member of the Alpena County Road Commission. Mr. Fletcher foresaw the benefits of aviation. Due in great part to his efforts, the land was surveyed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 1928. Harry and his brother Philip donated the first 80 acres. Several more surrounding 40-acre parcels were added to the original 80-acre plot of land, and most of the parcels were owned by Alpena Power Company. The airport was formally dedicated August 31st, 1931. It was named in honor of a World War I pilot. Captain Phelps Collins was an Alpena resident and a war ace who fought with the Lafayette Escadrille in France. Here's some interesting history. His signature is on the guest register for the Fireside Inn in Presque Isle, Michigan, which is still there today. You may even be able to ask for the same room that he slept in. Official documents and war records credit Collins with downing 7 German aircraft in battle over France. He died in aerial combat on March 12, 1918, at the age of 24. He was buried at the Lafayette Escadrille Memorial in St. Cloud, France. Governor William M. Brucker flew in with a delegation from Lansing to formally accept the airport, and so Collins Field became the first state-owned airport in Michigan. When the clouds of World War II were gathering, the Army Air Corps established a presence at Collins Field. The first buildings, the main gate and the cobblestone hangar, were constructed in 1935. These were the first official buildings on the site, and the hangar could house 4 to 6 average-sized aircraft. As well as general aviation, the airport became a facility to train military pilots. From 1931 to 1947, the field was used by various Army Air Corps units for training. The very first military unit to train at the site was the 1st Pursuit Group out of Selfridge Field, Michigan. As you can see by the biplanes, the huge military buildup of World War II was still in its early stages. As the United States became involved in World War II, Phelps Collins Field became a central feature of the Alpena community. Just after war was declared, plans were made for Alpena's airfield to become a full-scale training base. Later, however, the Army changed its plans and the base was never activated. Instead, in 1942 and 1943, Collins Field processed newly graduated pilots and prepared aircraft for deployment to overseas bases. At the conclusion of World War II, many of the buildings were stripped and the fixtures were auctioned off. Some of the housing units were moved to the north side of Alpena near McRae Park. With the end of World War II in 1947, the War Assets Administration turned the complete military installation over to the county of Alpena to be used as a civilian airport. In 1948, realizing they needed additional training capability, the Air National Guard requested joint use of the airfield. Today, the airport has two runways, 119 and 725. And by the way, those numbers indicate compass headings. So runway 25, for instance, faces west and has a magnetic bearing of 250 degrees. Runway 1 faces north and has a magnetic bearing of 1 degree. Alpena is designated as a primary airport because we do over 10,000 enplanements per year. We are Part 139, which means we have scheduled passenger and cargo freight service. As you can see in this picture, towards the bottom left of the screen is the CRTC, and the bottom right side of the screen is the civilian side of the airport. There's been significant growth on the CRTC through the years, but there's been very little development of the civilian end of the airport until now. In March of 2020, a new 13,000 square foot terminal was completed. If you look at the building, it's not obvious in some of these pictures, but the brickwork was put in there by the architects who spent 3 days in Alpena and Posen and the surrounding areas doing nothing but taking photographs. So the brickwork is intended to portray the quarrying that happened in the area. On the inside, there's many wooden touches, and those touches are for the logging that happened. And if you notice the edges of the roof, they're all done in a copper color. The copper color is representative of the Pewabic wreck that sits in Thunder Bay. So these guys really did an incredible job of capturing the flavor of Alpena. And even the glass at the peak of the building, when you come down Airport Road, like this time of year when it's dark, it looks like a lighthouse beckoning you as you come down Airport Road. The new terminal is, of course, much larger, much more modern, and much more comfortable. We even feature a fireplace now for those chilly days when you might come in to have a flight. We also have a baggage claim carousel now, a feature that was sadly lacking in our old facility. We have a jet bridge now as well, so no more walking to and from the terminal in the rain and snow. We're also equipped with a 90-passenger secure hold room. The hold room also has bathrooms and vending in it, so once you pass through security, you can just sit comfortably waiting for your flight to board. Every one of the chairs has charging ports, so your devices can be fully charged before you go. And we're also equipped with a brand new 360-degree scanner. So when you come in, you go to the checkpoint, you've seen these devices before, you simply step inside the booth, you raise your hands, it does a 360-degree scan, and you're done. So that's going to help speed up the passenger convenience and the boarding experience. Now, with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, airports were ordered by the federal government to remain open. We have to remain open because air travel is considered critical to the national infrastructure, not just for passenger flights, but also for the cargo, for emergency. There's just too many reasons why you can't have an airport shut down. However, almost immediately, airport revenues fell to zero because of the collapse of air travel. So the federal government devised a formula to award funds to airports to offset the lack of income and to ameliorate the debt burdens. Mostly because of the construction of our new terminal, the ramp expansion, and the purchase of a new runway sweeper, which is all counted as debt burden, and the operational costs to keep the airport running, Alpena was allocated $17.9 million, and I almost fell over when I saw that number. Now, this money is going to be used to offset the operational cost of the airport to the Alpena County taxpayers for calendar years 2020 and 2024. We're also going to make the following improvements to the airport. We've added additional personnel. We were always minimally manned with only 5 people. Well, now that we were able to add 2 more full-time operations support personnel, and these folks take care of the runway and taxiway maintenance, the snow removal, grass cutting, grounds upkeep, fixing all the equipment. They needed more help, and we were glad that we were able to give Alpena Ground Services some extra people. We were also able to hire an assistant airport manager. Now, we've never been able to do that before. Funds are always tight, but this allows the chance for this part-time manager to get fully trained in everything that happens at Alpena and what Alpena's needs are, and get to know the folks at FAA, MDOT Aeronautics, and everybody that you need to work with to keep things running smoothly. This also gives us the opportunity to have continuity. Usually in the past, an airport manager would leave Alpena and a new person would come in and they had a totally different idea from the previous airport manager what they wanted to happen. Well, now the assistant, he sees the plan, he sees the vision, and he sees the direction that we want to take the airport, and he completely agrees with it. So when I retire, we'll have somebody that can just step right in and continue the good work. We've got a lot of equipment out at an airport, and a lot of it needs to be replaced because it wears out. Now, these pictures are just representative. They're not the actual equipment that we're going to get. But some of the equipment that we need to pick up is we need a general utility vehicle for use around the airfield. We also are going to pick up a plow truck with a material spreader. Now, we've got a 1997 Chevy plow truck right now that to say that it's seen better days is an understatement. And with the material spreader, we can use that to spread salt in the parking lots and the approach drives. Now, another little fact is, you may not realize this, but airports, we cannot use salt out on the runways and taxiways. Aircraft are very lightweight pieces of equipment and corrode quite easily, so we can't use salt. What we have to rely on is the plows to keep the snow cleared. If the ice starts accumulating, we try to use the belly blades to peel the ice up. And if all else fails, we spread sand out there for friction. Now, one of the things that we need to do that is a front end loader to load the sand into the backs of these big runway plows, because they're all equipped with sand spreaders on the back of them as well. Now, our loader is kind of old and worn out, and the Airport Improvement Program, that's the program that gives us $1 million a year if we make 10,000 enplanements. They won't let us use that money to purchase things like front end loaders. Reason being is if it's for plowing, if it's for taking care of the runway, like maintenance of the runway, the lighting systems, or even repainting the markings that are out there, we can use the money for that, but we can't use it for things like grass cutting equipment and support equipment. So to that end, we're also going to pick up a tractor with a ditch cutter arm on it. Now, we've got a large drainage canal that runs almost all the way around the airport, and it's deep. But we got to keep the vegetation cut down, or you start getting birds and other wildlife hanging around there. Well, now the guys have to take the ride-on mower, and they actually have to drive at an angle along the drainage canal. And I'm always worried that something horrible could happen, that vehicle could flip over and somebody ends up in the water, either very badly hurt or dead. So this is a critical safety piece of equipment that I've been wanting for a while. We're also going to pick up 2 small utility vehicles that'll be equipped with snow blowers. And of course, they're going to have grass cutting equipment for them as well. Now you're thinking, why do we need small blowers like that on a huge airport? Well, we still have to clear the sidewalks. We still have to clear the areas where the baggage tugs go back and forth. So you need smaller equipment to get into those tighter areas. Plus, you've probably noticed that runways have lights on sticks all the way down them, and so do the taxiways. But we have to clear the snow from around those and behind them as well. And it's very difficult to do that with a huge dump truck that's got a 20-foot plow on the front of it. So this is specialist equipment for taking care of those tight areas. Something that we're going to do is we're going to do some non-revenue producing buildings and improvements. So what is that? Well, if you look at this picture at the very top, that yellow square, that's the old snow removal equipment building. Now, we use it now for storage because we have a larger building, but what we want to do is we want to expand 2 more stalls onto that. So as you can understand, we've got a lot of equipment. It's either grass cutting equipment, it's snow removal equipment, and no matter what the time of year is, you don't want to leave that stuff sitting outside because it just deteriorates it that much faster. So we're going to add on to that building, and that'll give us a place to put the equipment where it's out of the weather. Then the second box towards the bottom of the screen, we're going to construct a 12,000 square foot emergency response equipment staging facility. Now, there's a large amount of equipment that's used for emergencies, not just on the airport, but all over Alpena County. And this stuff is scattered all around the county. So by building this facility, we'll be able to concentrate this equipment in one spot where it'll be easy for the first responders to get to this equipment and mobilize it. Next, what we're going to do, and we've never had money for, is the corner of Airport Road and M32. It's a large area that's got a great deal of trees in it. Now, these trees are a problem for us because trees attract birds, and aircraft do not like getting hit by birds. There's thousands of aircraft strikes every year. So for safety, what we want to do is we want to remove that area. We want to level the ground, and then we're going to use it also for future development. One of the things that we're also going to do on there is we're going to put in a new snow removal equipment building. The current building that we have, it wasn't designed for the size of equipment that we've got now, and it's just like your garage at home. You pull in and you back out, or you back in and you pull out. Well, this has caused damage to the building over the years because when the snow is blowing and it's dark, it's hard to back up a piece of equipment that big and try to get it into a small door. So the new facility is going to be a roll-through facility, so we don't have to worry about backing equipment in anymore. Now for revenue-generating buildings. The FAA, they encourage airports to make as much money as they can so that they can be self-sufficient. This is not only a benefit to the FAA because that means less money they have to put into airports, it's also a benefit to the people of the county, because the less money that we have to take out of the general fund because we're making it ourselves, the better off everybody is. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you look at the middle of the picture, you can see what looks like little driveways. Well, those are called taxi lanes. And once that ground is cleared on the corner of 32 and Airport Road, we're going to extend those taxi lanes. And in that yellow square, that's where we're going to construct 20 T-hangars. Now, T-hangars are for small to medium-sized general aviation aircraft. You might be thinking, wow, 20, that might be a lot. Well, just on the rumors that we're going to construct these hangars, we already have 15 letters of intent on file from people that want to lease out these hangars for their airplanes. So again, we've stumbled onto a commodity that has been sadly lacking in Alpena. And at $200 per month per hangar, this is going to generate a significant amount of income to the airport. We're also going to construct a 12,000 square foot boat and RV storage facility. Now, when you look at this picture, you can see the boxes that have got the numbers 1 and 2 up there. That's going to be the initial building. There's a untapped potential for this because I've heard from a lot of folks that there's just not enough storage space for RVs and boats. So this is going to be another source of revenue for the airport. The number 2 indicates expansion. If we do extremely well with the storage facility, we're probably going to expand into that area marked number 2. Just below it is the area marked number 3. That's where the new sheriff's office is going in. So as you can see, we're trying to do the best we can to develop the property to the east of the airport. And hopefully this will stimulate further development by private organizations that want to come in and continue building up to the fence line. Next, you see in this picture on the left is the new terminal and on the right is the old terminal. Well, our plan is to demolish the old terminal and we're going to put up a new building that's going to initially be where we establish a restaurant. It's also going to be a meeting hall large enough for weddings, graduation parties, intergovernmental meetings, just a general purpose building to also meet the shortage of apparently hall space in our county. A further benefit to this is if Alpena continues to grow, we may get interest from another airline. If we do get another airline that wants to come into Alpena, we would be able to establish them in that new building and turn that actually into a south terminal. So that way their Delta could still operate out of the building to the left and the new airline could operate independently in the building on the right. Lastly, we're going to construct what is called in the business a Taj Mahal hangar. Now, when we built the new terminal, we had to demolish a 16,000 square foot hangar to make room for it. Again, we didn't have the money to develop the property to the south, so that was the least expensive way to get the new terminal built. So what are we going to do with a 20,000 square foot hangar? Well, you can see that airplane that's being pulled out in this depiction. That's about the size of a Gulfstream G2. Now, the Gulfstream G2 is also about the same size as the RJ200 that Delta operates in and out of Alpena. So when the airliner needs maintenance, and sometimes it does, there's been 2 or 3 occasions where the aircraft left and had to return because they weren't getting a landing gear up and locked indication. So they come back to the airport, everybody has to get off the plane, another plane gets sent. Well, what do you do with the old plane? Well, you have to jack it up and you have to cycle the landing gear 3 times, at least 3 times. The problem is when you jack the airplane up, it's got to be completely windless day. And I can guarantee you there are not too many windless days out at an airport. So we've had one of the RJ200s was at Alpena for 5 days before they finally had a windless day. With a hangar this size, we can bring it inside for maintenance and it can be back on its way in the same day. Same thing with these large aircraft. People that can spend $20 to $100 million on a private aircraft, they don't want them sitting outside, especially in the wintertime. So that's going to be another use for this. We're also going to have the fueling FBO, that's fixed base operator. That's what airports call people who are licensed to operate on airport property. We're going to have the FBO operate out of this building because they're the ones that they park the airplanes, they greet the people coming off, and they do whatever else needs to be done. So if they're operating out of this building, we can not only bring these high-end customers in with a degree of comfort, we can also take care of their needs. We can also have, believe it or not, these people like to have catered meals delivered to the aircraft before they leave. There's a lot of uses that a hangar like this can do for us. We're also going to include in it additional shop space. We're hoping to attract avionics people and engines maintenance people. And initially, we want to have a place for them to start up their business. Later on, they can build their own hangar and they can take airplanes over there, but it's important to have a place for them to start immediately so we can get that capacity at Alpena. Another thing is crew rest quarters. When an airplane like the one you see in this picture comes in, they always have a crew of at least 2. Now, when the clients get off the airplane, they might be gone for 3, 4, 6, 8 hours. And it's not worth it for the plane to go somewhere else because they'd be late getting back. So the air crews need a place where they can do flight planning, where they can just sit and relax. And there's even bunk rooms so that if they need to take a nap, they can take a nap. This building will also house the airport administrative offices. We're going to put in a large conference room for that so that these people that are coming into Alpena to do business, they wouldn't have to waste more time by running back and forth to town. They could have the folks meet them right at the airport. They could take care of business right there and be back on their way. Because if you're flying in on a $50 million jet, time is money and you don't want to waste time. So that's the plan for the Taj Mahal hangar. Now, In the 6 years that I've been at the airport, I've seen a lot of interesting airplanes come and go. So this is kind of like the eye candy part of the presentation. So without further ado, here are two RJ200s. Now, if you notice, the plane in the foreground has got the Delta markings on it. Well, that aircraft was in dropping off passengers and getting ready to board the passengers that were leaving. While they were here, that second RJ200 came in. That second RJ200 is privately owned. So somebody has a lot of money because the Delta jet can carry 50 people and three crew members. That aircraft only had 12 seats in it and a whole lot of luxury. So yes, there are some very high-end aircraft that come to Alpena. This fun little guy, this was number 7 of an 8-plane demonstration team that just flies around the country to air shows. He was on his way to his next air show and stopped in for fuel. This is a 1930s era Beechcraft 18. If you look really closely at it, it's got a very cool paint job. It's all Art Deco. This plane was very fun to see on the ramp. Next, this is a Bombardier Firebomber. Now, this is owned by the U.S. Forest Service, and it was one of 3 that was deployed to Alpena. They stayed here for 3 months, and why they bring these airplanes into these areas is they're forward deployed. So if there's a wildfire, they can immediately respond to it and try to bring it under control. That's another reason for the big hangar, is with the extra office space and maintenance space. When we have visitors like this, we can lease these spaces out to them, making their stay more comfortable and once again, generating more income for the airport. You ever wonder how people get to the South Pole? Well, you hitch a ride on a C-130J like this one. These aircraft are operated by the New York Air National Guard, and they're specially fitted out for Arctic operations. You can see that it has skis down by the wheels. There's other things like improved cabin heaters and such. And another interesting point is you look at the propellers. Now, the older C-130s had 4-bladed metallic props. These new C-130Js, those are carbon fiber propellers. And I've been told by the crewmen that by adding the carbon fiber propellers to these aircraft, it increased the speed of the aircraft by 100 miles per hour and extended its range because the propellers work so much easier, they don't burn as much fuel. Little fun fact for you. Now here is a CH-47. This was here at the same time that the fire bombers were. It had rained for 5 days straight, and they were, quote, getting electrical gremlins, unquote, and wanted a place to put the chopper so it could dry out and then run tests on it. This is the inside of the 16,000 square foot hangar that we tore down. Now, that building was built in the early 60s, and it just was not efficient in any way. The last group that was leasing this hangar from us, they told us that it cost them $5,000 per month to heat the hangar, and that was just at 62 degrees. So that was one of the reasons why it was deemed that that hangar was a good candidate to go. Next, this is a Gulfstream G2. I say several times a year we have aircraft this size or larger coming in that are either private or chartered aircraft. Now, this G2, it's got a starting price tag of $10 million. And that doesn't include any cabin fitments, no upgrades, no high-end satellite TV, none of that. So this plane, sitting as it is right now, is probably $35 to $40 million on the hoof. Here's another G2, but this is a bird of a very different feather here. If you look at the dorsal of the airplane, do you see all those antennas? Now look at the nose of the airplane and you can see 2 infrared and FLIR sensors. Plus under the wings, those are electronics pods. This aircraft belongs to DARPA, which does experimental work for the military. So they were in the area, well, they're usually in the area at least once a year. And they'll fly out of Alpena for 2 or 3 days at a time, taking fuel and living downtown. So it's just another one of the interesting aircraft that you can see out at the airport. This little guy is a Cessna 337 OV-1 observation aircraft. Now, these were used heavily during the Vietnam War, and they're still being used in a limited way by the Air Force. Now, when you look at this airplane, did you notice that it's got two engines? There's one on the nose, and then when you look towards the rear of the plane where the fuselage sweeps up, you can see the propeller. These planes have twin booms and twin tails, and that second pusher engine rides between those two booms. This is a Bell 206 Jet Ranger, and we see a lot of these come in and out. They're used by so many organizations, both federal and private. This aircraft was originally developed in response to a U.S. Army proposal for a lightweight scout helicopter for use in the Vietnam War, and it was accepted as the OH-58 Kiowa. Now, did you know the U.S. Army names all of its helicopters after Native American tribes? This is a tribute to their skills as scouts and warriors. The Jet Ranger became very popular as a corporate and VIP aircraft, as well as an exceptional military scout. Occasionally, our neighbors in Oscoda drop by for some touch and go and tower training. This is a Kalitta 747-800 cargo liner. Now, they like to come to Alpena because unlike flying into, say, Detroit or Chicago, it's very hard to train a new pilot in an aircraft that size. So when they come to Alpena, they get a chance to talk to a tower, they get to take instructions from the radar approach controllers, and it gives them an opportunity to just shoot touch and goes in an area that's not congested with other traffic. This is an unusual sight. These two aircraft, these are both Beechcraft, and they are both King Airs. Now, the one that's closest to you, that's a civilian King Air. And the one that's to the front of it, you see it's got the Air Force markings on it. That's a VIP transport. Undoubtedly, it's a little less more finely appointed than what the civilian one was, but they both do the same job. Also in the background, you can see a cargo caravan. Now, these airplanes fly in and out of Alpena every day. Most days we see 3 to 5 of them. And if you ordered anything off of Amazon, odds are it came on one of these caravans into Alpena. Now, come on, state fans, you got to admit that's cool. This is also another one of the reasons why we were ordered to stay open, was medevac flights. Normally, we see helicopters coming in to evacuate really sick people or critically injured people out of Alpena and take them to larger hospitals downstate. So when they send the Learjet for you, you really need help, but you're going to get there fast. So go blue. Don't think we don't see our share of high tech either. This is an MQ-9 Reaper built by General Atomics that supported Northern Strike a couple of years ago. This is a rivet joint. You see that big antenna on the belly? This beast can track thousands of targets simultaneously, and it can even pass information to other aircraft using data link. If you recognize the shape of the plane, that's because it's a Boeing 707. That's also the basis for the KC-135 tanker. So the Air Force uses a lot of these aircraft in a lot of different configurations. One of our very unique visitors was this sky crane that had been converted to a fire bomber. Now, these sky cranes were originally built by the U.S. Army for heavy lift capabilities, which is why the belly is shaped the way it is and the wheels are so high up. It was supposed to take like something the size of tractor trailers and hoist them up, or they could sling load. But this one has been converted, as I said, to a fire bomber. And if you look on the left side of the aircraft, you can see that large hose. That's all they would do, is they would hover over Lake Winya, pump water up from Lake Winya into that large tank, and then they would spray it onto fires. If there would have been a fire, what they did was they sprayed several times just for training. Now, all of them were given names originally by the U.S. Army. And this one kept its name. And as you can see on the nose, it's called Twisted Sister. I think that that's probably a very apt name for a helicopter like this. This aircraft is a Yak trainer. With the fall of the Soviet Union, communist bloc aircraft became available and affordable. This Yakolov was originally built as a pilot trainer, but its American owner has taken some artistic license, even going so far as to have dummy missiles made and hung underneath the wings. If you get closer to the aircraft, you can also see where they painted in bullet holes. So somebody is very proud of their acquisition. Now, aircraft crashes, thankfully, there have been very few of them at Alpena. They do occur. The latest one was on 20 July 2017 at 2:26 p.m. I know because I was there. Now, why did that happen? There. What happened was Captain Brett DeVries of the 127th Wing out of Selfridge Air National Guard Base by Detroit, he was strafing targets at the Grayling Air Gunnery Range. And while he was strafing targets, his 30-millimeter cannon suffered a breech explosion. Now, if you look in the lower left hand of this frame, that's the size of one 30-millimeter cannon round, and they carry hundreds of them on this aircraft. Well, the explosion blew off almost all the forward inspection panels on the aircraft, knocked out the primary and secondary radios, caused the canopy to separate from the aircraft. If that wasn't enough, the nose gear was jammed in the stowed configuration. So while Captain DeVries and his wingman were flying over the bay trying to figure out what they were going to do, they realized that the rear landing gear would come down, but the nose gear would not. So the two choices were eject from the aircraft, rendering it a total loss, or do a belly landing at Alpena. Well, because the pilot's ejection seat had partially fired because of the explosion, his head was actually up above the windscreen. So he was taking a lot of buffeting to the head from the slipstream of the aircraft. So realizing that they could not safely ditch the aircraft, they brought it back to Alpena and executed a wheels-up landing. The aircraft slid about 3,500 feet down runway 1. The rear wheels, because of friction, heat buildup, both of those exploded and caught fire, but those fires were quickly doused by the CRTC fire team. The pilot was uninjured. The aircraft was actually salvaged and it should be back in service by now. They said it was going to take 2 years to repair all the damage to the wing boxes and the fuselage. And just a historical fact, this is believed to be the only time in the 40-plus year history of the A-10 Thunderbolt that a pilot had to land without the canopy and with the landing gear retracted. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. If there's anybody that has questions, I would love to answer them for you.
That's pretty amazing history, Steve.
Well, thank you.
That was unexpected that far back in time. But yeah, there was a lot of land out west of Alpena there that a lot of things got used for that you don't know about anymore. The relationship with the CRTC, do you guys jointly snow plow the whole runway, or how's that work with you guys in the winter?
The CRTC, they help out the best that they can. Back before sequestration, there was a lot of force cuts. I know I was a victim of it, which is why I'm the airport manager now. My job was going away. Well, when I was still at the CRTC, I helped plow the airfield as well. And back then we had over 100 enlisted men. Well, after sequestration and the force cuts, the CRTC now has, I believe, 45 enlisted men. So they help out the best they can, but if they can't get out there because of personnel shortages, it's up to us to take care of the whole airfield.
Okay. That's a pretty long. How long is the runway there? I forgot. Somebody told me one time.
The main runway is 9,001 feet long by 150 feet wide.
You know, I landed one time with a guy who had a small single engine airplane on. It was like you never really saw the end of it.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
Well, if it was just civilian air, like the airliner, we would only be at 6,500 feet by 75 feet wide. The reason for the extra length and width is so that it can accommodate the big C-17s and C-5s that the Air Force brings in.
Right, right. Yeah, they fly. I live out on Hubbard Lake. They fly over every once in a while. They like to come on low over Hubbard Lake, I think. But in terms of the, you really don't. Obviously, when you're not there every day, you don't get to appreciate all the different types of aircraft that fly in. That was pretty amazing set of slides you had there with all of the variation in aircraft. That one firefighter aircraft, that was kind of a strange creature.
Yeah, they definitely do look weird.
Yeah, that I never saw one up close like that. We did have, this was now 10 years ago. They had all the fires east or west of Hubbard Lake out, and I think it was Oscoda County. We did have the helicopter come in and drop its snorkel several times and take off for back there. And it was a long ways away, so that was the first time I saw one of those close. Interesting. Well, to those of you online, if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, please go ahead. We've got several folks saying thank you for a very informative presentation. We do have one question. Will the additional equipment help avoid closings, i.e. getting stuck in the Detroit airport?
It will. Like there's times when you just can't stay open. Like last year, we got slammed heavily with snow. Then it would melt. Then it would freeze. Then we got like 3 days of freezing rain. Then it warmed up and everything melted and froze again. That was horrible for us because, as I said earlier, we can't use salt out there. The only thing we can do is just try to peel it up with the belly blades or spread sand. But the wind was blowing so hard during that period of time that as we were trying to drop the sand, it was just getting blown right across the runway into the grass. So there's times when you fight as hard as you can, but you just can't keep the airport open. My guys do a very good job. Percentage-wise, our airport is open more than Pellston, definitely more than Pellston. We have a better average than Traverse City, and we're on par, believe it or not, with Detroit Metro, and that was with a smaller crew. So with a bigger crew, we can run more equipment and we can work harder and faster.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm surprised they even let you use sand on the runway. I didn't know that.
That sand it's special sand. It has to be washed and it has to be screened so that the particles are small enough to fit through this certain type of screen. Right. Otherwise, jet engines would inhale it, and if there was any rocks or anything in it, it would shatter turbine blades.
Right, right. Okay, so it's not too small and it's not too big. You're saying the sand particles.
No.
Yeah, jet engines don't like sand.
No, and 40 yards of that sand costs $800.
Ooh.
And
yeah,
for us to treat the runway wide enough to do like a 75-foot wide and full length coating of sand, it takes one full load of 40 yards to take care of just that. And that doesn't include having to sand the taxiways so that the airliner doesn't slide off a taxiway.
Right.
So every time it snows, all I see is dollar signs flying out the window.
Yeah, I imagine, along with a lot of other stuff. Yeah, that last year, that was really bad. It affected everybody, the roads, my driveway, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have that strange combination of weather.
Yeah.
But
and our Alpena ground services guys, I can't give them enough credit because they have been out there on big snow events. And I do not exaggerate when I say they'll be out there for more than 24 hours. They'll send a guy home to get some rest and he'll come back and spell somebody in the truck. There's been days when they just kept running constantly, just swapping out drivers, trying to keep the equipment going.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. It's a lot of runway to clean off there. In terms of the new I forgot what you called the special terminal where larger aircraft or a hangar where larger aircraft can enter it. Is that a for sure, or is that still on the financing drawing board?
I just had the delivery of a land use study that our engineering firm, RS&H, did for us. And it incorporates everything that we want to do. So we've got the drawings of where all the buildings are supposed to go. What we're going to do with this now is we present this to the FAA, and the FAA is either going to approve or deny the projects. But everything we're doing is all for airport improvement and revenue generation and for safe operation. So there's nothing that we're asking for that should be out of the norm. So we should be able to use that 17.9 million to construct all these new facilities.
Okay. I guess that was my question. Okay. Mary Ann, did you have a question?
Yeah. Do you have a timeline on that, Steve?
Well, the timeline that I've set for myself is I would like to see all the construction done in the next 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
We're going to break ground on the T hangars. That's the priority to try to get some more money flowing into the county. We're going to be starting on those in the springtime. So once those are done, then we're going to start work on the next priority one is to demolish the old terminal and start building that new multi-purpose building there. And at the same time, we want to build the Tajma hangar as well.
Okay. Excellent. Good presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome.
In terms of the airport property, east of the runways and stuff, there's the area where the new sheriff's office is. That was sort of plotted out for industrial use. Is that what I understand?
Back in, it was 1965, the county had requested that property be released from FAA control because it was for non-aeronautical uses. So back in 1965, the FAA agreed to release that property. And they did indeed have visions of a industrial park going in there. Those didn't turn out. So what we're doing now is, since we still have the land released for non-aeronautical uses, we're going to start using it to build other things.
Okay. We did have a question. Are your air traffic controller multitask? How many are employed at APN?
At any given time, there's the tower is open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's Monday through Friday, unless there's military units in, and then they'll staff on the weekends or holidays. There's always 2 controllers in the tower cab, at least 2, sometimes 3. Plus they're supported by the radar approach control. And the radar approach control can have anywhere from 3 to 6 people working in it, doing nothing but watching aircraft on the radar operating in and out of the area.
So is that radar traffic control right at the airport?
Yeah, it was probably 12 years ago, 15 years ago now. They put in a new DASR 11, a completely digital radar. It was one of the most advanced ones in the nation to go in, and it came into Alpena. It's so good that Minneapolis actually uses the feed from Alpena to control our sector.
Okay.
And you're talking about the Alpena Airport. You're not talking about the CRT with the air traffic. Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Air traffic control and the radar, that's all part of the CRTC.
Okay.
Because of letters of agreement and a joint use agreement, they provide those services to the airport.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Again, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I didn't want it to be dry, so I figured I'd try to throw as much eye candy in as we could.
Oh, it was lots of good eye candy. Yeah.
That was very interesting.
That was fun.
And I've got a face that was meant for radio, so as much as I stay off the camera, it's better for everybody.
Well, you did great. So I'd like to thank you, Steve. Unless there's any further questions, I'll have to say it was a very well done presentation, and the information was beyond what I had expected. So appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, we'll be ending the program in a week or so. We'll have it on YouTube, and Steve, I'll send you a link so you can see it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
thank you very
Thanks for
much
having me.
for all your hard work putting this together.
Oh, no problem. A lot of it was fun.
Okay, we'll see you. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.